Hello, everybody. This is Noah and John, and we are with UrbanDigs. And Johnny, today we are talking Manhattan, and we have a good one today. We have Maya Kadouri over from Douglas Elliman. She has been in this business for about 15 years, give or take. But the real impressive stat is that she's closed more than $2 billion in residential sales, consistently doing production year after year. Most recently, sales director over at the Belnord. She's ranking top 3% at Elliman Agents, constantly ranked at The Real Deal as a top New York City broker. 200 East 62nd Street, 212 West 72nd Street, River and Warren, Manhattan House. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that she's doing. She's all over the place, John.
I know. It's a lot of stuff, and I have some questions about some of those that I just have to. People want answers to, so we'll get to that.
I got some questions. And Maya, thank you. You're sitting there just patiently waiting to talk. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to start right off the bat, Maya.
Thank you.
What is going on in this New York City market right now today?
So I think we're still experiencing a pretty robust market overall, but I am seeing signs of a shift in the unit mix and the price point that's actually driving the market. So the last 2 quarters were largely driven by the trophy market of 10 million apartments that are 10 million and above. And now in the recent weeks, we're experiencing a shift where we're seeing the below 6 million, specifically $2 to $4 million segment really driving this market. And so I think we're still seeing signs of buyers' continuous interest. Despite the tightening of the inventory. But I do believe that sellers are being a little bit more cautious. And in recent weeks, I'm seeing some modest price corrections.
Interesting. And just quick follow-up. When you talk about the trophy market sort of driving the more recent market, is that something where you're talking about a demand growth scenario, or just sort of this trophy market just keeps on carrying on?
Well, it had been the last 2 quarters. They were banner quarters, and a significant amount of trophy apartments were sold on a weekly basis that were being reported. Interestingly enough, there's been a shift where we're seeing more recently that, whether it's just a rebound from the growth and, just evenly leveling things out. But right now, it doesn't seem to be the driving force in the last reports.
Maya, just to stay on this topic of state of market conditions for a little bit longer, this tighter inventory environment, I feel like this has been happening for about, I don't know, since like post-pandemic, 5 years or so. And it's getting real tight out there to the point where, we're eating each other's scraps off the plate a little bit. What are your pipeline? This is what I'm looking for. Do you have sellers that are just off the market now, but are going to come back right now? Or are you just seeing in general, there's just a declining pool of sellers overall to try to get them to even consider listing on the market?
That's a great question. And I think we're seeing a little bit of both. So I think the pipeline in general is smaller. There's less, new developments being built overall in New York. And then secondly, I think, there's an issue for sellers who at the moment, we are in the summer lull. So maybe opting to take it off the market for a couple of months and then repositioning it for a fall in a more robust time. However, I think it comes into play too, where if you're going to be selling, you have to really have your ducks in a row. The rental market has been out of control. So it gives you less options. If you are if you are selling, you really need to know what your next place will be. There's less flexibility if you need an interim place in the meanwhile. So I think there are a couple of aspects that are going on, but definitely just the pipeline has been diminishing since COVID. There's just been a shift, and we know a bigger shift towards Florida and other places in this country, rather than developers really focusing in on Manhattan and New York.
Yeah.
Overall, New York City.
That's a great point. And I have to follow up because you mentioned the tight rental market. And I'm curious because a lot of times when you think about the intersection between rentals and sales, a lot of it is focused on the price of rentals. But I think at some point, once you get up higher, it's less about price and more about scarcity. And I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about the rental market from that ultra luxury trophy point of view, are the renter / potential buyers more put off by the scarcity of this, or are the rental prices what's driving sort of maybe a conversion there?
Very good assessment. I think that might be driving the conversion largely. I might get, I don't know, 10 requests every couple of days on my sales listings. Would the seller or would the sponsor be willing or open to renting it? So I feel there's a little bit of desperation, and this is for the luxury market. So there's just a really tight amount of inventory, and just not enough for buyers, for tenants to be able to find a place. So it's creating this feeding frenzy where the numbers are going way above market value, but people are getting desperate, and it's caused a really big ripple effect in how it's affecting hand in hand both the rental market and then the sales market.
I mean, I hate to keep talking about it, John, but this is exactly what the New York City investment thesis is that we talked about with Noam Newman about why there's probably another wave of price action for the sales market that is about to happen. It's from from a lot of policies that have created this situation. And just to pivot to the next question through policies here, Maya, have you seen buyers take a pause with the whole Pied-à-Terre tax that is now taken hold? Is it impacting buyers' mindsets, or is it just the season? It's July also, so it's hard to decipher.
So that's very interesting. And I think, like with every tax, it takes a minute, like a pause to really understand. I think there was a lot of confusion, not only for buyers, but the industry itself, to really decipher and understand the two phases of this tax. But I do feel there was a reaction. And interestingly enough, the Olshan Report this week reported that 20 of the 29 apartments that sold were under 6 million. Whereas, as we discussed prior to that, it was the trophy market that was really leading the signed contracts per week. And this week it was only one recorded $10 million plus apartment. So could that be indicative that the Pied-à-Terre tax had something to do with that shift? I think maybe it didn't contribute to all of it, but definitely an aspect of it. I've experienced, and so have my colleagues shared, that there are buyers who either, if there was no sense of urgency, paused their search, or they pulled out of a deal. Or third of all, they pivoted to something that is smaller, or that would be less of an acquisition, that would be under 5 million, and so they wouldn't have to deal with the implications of the Pied-à-Terre tax. So it definitely did cause some concern and a lot of confusion, and probably it takes time for everyone to get comfortable with it. And I expect to see a rebound, but for the immediacy, I think we definitely did see an impact.
It's really interesting, and I want to tie it back to something you said just a second ago when we were talking about the frustration in the rental markets. One of the things you're also seeing people sort of head down to Florida, or sort of be a little bit more mobile. There's been a lot of talk in the Pied-à-Terre tax about how it's going to affect the buy side, and I'm wondering if you're seeing any of those ripple through to the sell side. Someone saying, it's not worth it. I mean, I think I take your point that it really is. Also, it's too early. Seasonality is sort of not on your side to sort of draw any broad points in terms of trends. But I'm just curious if you've seen any sort of hints that you might see some sell side action because of this at this point.
Yes, I think we can see. I think it really depends on the segment of the population you're thinking of, and I think those who maybe were considering, selling a couple of years down the line, and may instigate them to make that move a little bit sooner, and reposition themselves and their assets. So I do think part of it will come into play, and it would affect the speed at which a seller is considering to sell in their timeline.
Interesting. Maya, I want to talk about AI. Artificial intelligence. I've heard some stuff. I know there's ways agents are using it. I know that. We're all discovering it for the first time. Sometimes we feel very godlike, right, of what we could do. Incredible. But I want to talk about it from the consumer point of view, because, on their side, which is different than our side, consumers, buyers and sellers are going into ChatGPT and they're saying, hey, what is my place going to sell for? What is my place worth? And of course, whatever they say is probably going to be something they're going to seriously think is correct. And I'm hearing from agents across the industry that, I have to spend more time re-educating my clients about what they should be focusing on and why that may not be correct. So is that what you're seeing? And tell me your experience with dealing with consumers that are using AI on their own and how that's impacting your job.
So it's definitely making it more difficult, or at least a little bit more challenging in the sense that, and I will say, especially with foreign buyers, so not only sellers, but with buyers too. And specifically, I'm noticing with foreign buyers who seem to be more reliant on AI or ChatGPT and the like for information or sometimes misinformation. So if you've ever tested any of these AI applications like ChatGPT, it's really pulling a lot of information online, right? And not everything is accurate. Previously, when you were reliant on your agent to pull up a comp report, we sift through them to see what's most relevant and most accurate when we're presenting comps for a seller or a buyer when you're about to make an offer. So really, they're challenging your assessment and challenging you as an advisor. So you almost have to prove the basis for why you can't rely on just the data that you're receiving from AI. And it's not really evaluating the whole picture to be able to properly assess the property. So, while, it definitely has its place and it could facilitate our life in the sense that they could pull up comps in 2 seconds. So, we don't need to send that full, report to them. It does pose challenges to really get them to understand that it's not the Bible and you can't just completely rely on it for accuracy.
Yeah, so this is such a great topic, and I just wrote a piece in Forbes about this, and essentially it was like, look, you can certainly use AI to help you buy or sell a home, but you don't want to let the robot have the keys. And a part of it is because exactly what you said, which is that it is 100% confident, but not always 100% accurate. And it'll give you everything. It's like, this is the answer, and you question it, and then it'll say, that's a great catch.
Exactly.
And that great catch can amount to hundreds of thousands or, in fact, millions of dollars if you're talking
Correct.
about some of these things. So it is really not the kind of thing you just want to hand over and just let it drive. So I just want to echo that point because I think it's a great point.
Exactly, John. Exactly.
And I did want to follow up there. I just, out of curiosity, are you using sort of any of the administrative aspects of AI to sort of help out your workflow as a broker in your daily practice?
I do. Currently, DE is on Outlook, so on Microsoft. So I do use Copilot. I do sometimes use ChatGPT or Claude. I like to just see what information it's providing to my buyers and sellers. So I kind of test out, and sometimes there is some great talking points that it does bring to the plate. So I do feel it is good as an assistant, which is what it's meant to be, but not a replacement, to your point.
That's a great point.
Great point there, Maya. All right, I want to move on here. I just got a couple more questions here. I know we're getting towards the end of the interview, but I want to talk about how do you win listings, right? How do you win that listing pitch? There's got to be some type of strategy or secret sauce, as John said, and your production success speaks for itself. So you've been down this road many times successfully. Tell us, Maya. Maya, please tell us something.
AI, Noah, that's my secret.
Oh, all about AI. Of course it is.
I knew it.
Get all these other competitors to use AI, and then you'll go in there with the good stuff. Okay.
No, but kidding aside, and though, as we discussed, AI definitely has its place, I try to focus more on the human aspect. So from my experience, when you want to win a listing, you really have to win the trust and confidence of your seller, that you're really doing what's in their best interest, and that's top of mind. And I find it has less to do about the number and more to do about the trust that you foster in the relationship that you build. And that means you need to be able to not only support the numbers that you're suggesting, but also that there's a human component of understanding the seller's whole picture and what's important to them. So I think that's really key. They need to feel heard and understood. So, and that's sometimes taking their lead. Yeah, that's sometimes taking their lead with communicating your concerns with their suggestions. And then sometimes it's clearly stating what your perspective is and, with their best interest in mind. And if you didn't foster that relationship and that trust early on, it's going to make it harder for you to have those necessary conversations. As we know, the market's dynamic. So sometimes you will have to have a discussion about price or their expectations. And, if you didn't do the early work of establishing that trust and fostering that relationship, that conversation is a lot more work and a lot more for you to have to decipher and understand.
I mean, I think that in a nutshell, that is what this industry is. And I think kudos for that. And I want to dig into it because I think one of the things that we've heard from the top agents who have been on the show like you is that it all comes down to the trust. And a lot of that comes down to finding your voice and being able to talk to the client from a fiduciary level. So it's not just like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, this place is awesome. Oh, we're going to get the highest amount of money. It's telling them the real truth in a way that makes sense to them. And I'm wondering, I'd love to hear some more stories, but I'm curious, did you come into this industry sort of already with that voice, or did it take you a while to find it? How did that shape up for you looking back?
Very interesting. I actually got into the industry out of a bad experience, not with an agent, but with a lender. And it made me feel that there wasn't enough information, and a lot of people, when they were going through the process, really didn't get to understand all the components, and not every agent was the same. It was very important for me to be as transparent as possible and to treat my clients the way I would want to be treated. And with that, I think the ability to understand their needs and to relay, even and have the hard conversations. But I think that's a really critical aspect of what you could bring to the table as an agent. That just fosters their ability to take your lead and really, in the end, achieve the best results for everyone. So I think, that was, one of the components that drove me more into the business. Prior to that, I was always very interested in real estate. And would spend a lot of time looking at apartments or looking at homes outside the city. But then I turned it a career when I saw like a need for people to really have a trusted advisors, by their side, so they don't get taken and they don't get lost in translation.
You're the first person. You were one of the original people to say, "Hey, that's a great catch." However.
But it's also coming from the perspective as the customer, coming from that perspective and seeing it with those eyes and what's wrong with it and what I don't like about it, what's confusing, and then going into the other role with that point of view and perspective, saying, I'm going to run my business the way I would have wanted somebody else to do it for me. And that experience be better. And it works. It's all about having that good experience. So, I mean, I love that you great follow-up question there, Johnny. And good stuff there. All right. I got one more question, Maya.
Sure.
I guess it's kind of related to that, but it's different. We always ask this of our top producers that visit us here. If you were to run into your former self, okay, younger self, I should say, when you're just starting out, you time traveled back 15 years ago to 2011, and you met Maya starting out on day one, what would you tell yourself as a tip to be successful in this business?
So I guess the one strategic tip I'd probably give to agents when they're starting out, and it kind of is, I guess, the theme of what we've been talking about. And it's about relationship building and being of value beyond the transaction. So, which means that it's a tough market right now to be an agent, between all the AI capabilities, everything that, buyers are much more savvy today than they were 15 years ago. They have a lot more information at their hand. So it means you need to set yourself apart. And the way to do that is to facilitate your client's life in all aspects of the transaction. And that means, having contacts for lenders, for designers, for contractors, for cleaners, for whatever is needed, whatever your buyer's needs are. If you could facilitate and take the burden and stress off of them and feel like they have a partner in being able to facilitate all the other areas of the transaction, I think that will set you apart. So I would focus less on getting someone to buy as quickly as possible or a seller to give you the listing as quickly as possible, but present yourself as having the ability to streamline their process. And that creates your perceived value and repeat business. And I think that makes you an invaluable resource.
I love that. And we don't hear that often. And I absolutely love it because it's like, it's a trusted, vetted vendor referral program, so to speak, that you're the director of, and you know a guy for every sell side, buy side investor need that you've worked with, you trust to do a competent job, and they don't have to worry about any of that. That's great. That's an excellent value add beyond the transaction, as you said. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff there,
well,
Maya.
so typically we sort of wrap it up here, Maya. But I think, and I just want to say, if you've been listening this long, you're in for a treat, because I do have a bonus question for you, Maya.
Ooh, okay.
As I
this is
understand
unplanned,
it,
Maya.
This is unplanned and scripted.
Exactly. Saved by the bell. As I understand it, you helped run the conversion, essentially, of the Belnord on 86th Street, which...
yeah, I was the director of sales.
The director of sales. So now, people might know, if you're a Hulu watcher, that is the setting for the Hulu series, very popular series, Only Murders in the Building. And I'm just curious, because I want some behind the scenes stuff. You probably have nothing to do with the show, but I'm just curious, how much fun is that for you, sort of seeing the show or seeing a building that you sort of have intimate knowledge of being depicted as like the setting for a cool show?
Incredibly exciting. What was amazing about it was that it drew a younger population's love for pre-war building and aesthetics. And through the show earlier on, when the show first started and it started getting recognized, especially the famous courtyard and the gates, right? It is the setting for the building, the Arconia. We had a lot of buyers say our children, our teenagers, or, they suggested we come look at an apartment here. They saw it, on Only Murders, and they really wanted to come in and for us to check out an apartment. So, it did. What I loved was that you had these, buyers come in, and it was really the push of their kids, and we really started to find that there was a younger demographic who started to appreciate a building that may not have been appreciated or even looked at before. So, it was a lot of fun. And it was a lot of fun to see some of the recordings and obviously the cast. And they were lovely. And even on the last day of filming, they would, be open to the residents even being, extras or watching. So there was a lot of excitement. And I really feel that building deserves the recognition and, the restoration, that Westbrook Partners had put into it to bring it back to its glory, because it really is a jewel in the Upper West Side.
Awesome. Yeah, it is. And this is one of the things that I've been on a little bit of a soapbox for the last, 10 years or so. And there's been the constant, this bonus, by the way, is going on a lot longer than anyone expected, but I'm going to keep going with it. There's been a constant discussion about how condos are just eating co-op's lunch and no one wants to buy a co-op, all that stuff. And I get it. And there are reasons why. However, co-ops, part of their allure is they have these amazing locations because they've been there for 100 plus years. And the Belnord, of course, is one. The Dakota is the other. Some of the ones on Fifth Avenue, Park Avenue. Obviously, they're very well located, but they've been sort of in the slump. And I'm wondering if, clearly the Arconia is a fictional building, it's a fictional co-op. But I wonder if that location and that vibe, that pre-war co-op vibe, I wonder if that show's influence is going to maybe spark an interest in some of these other located pre-war co-ops. I'd be curious to see, like, if that shows up in the numbers. I'll have to come back in a year or so and check. or basically go back to when only murders premiered and see if we see an uptick in co-ops. But
true.
I agree with it.
No, it's true. I'd say a couple of things to that. One, the Belnord is a little bit different because it is a condo conversion.
Yeah, it's a condo.
So that's great. But to your point about the co-op market, in fact, I believe a couple of weeks ago, the co-op luxury market outpaced the condo market.
Yes,
and that's
coming back.
Partly due to inventory, largely due to pricing and value of what you could get for the pricing. But I do think that there is definitely a comeback of the co-op market due to many factors, some number driven, but I think to your point, I think we're seeing a little bit of revisit and these like a desire to have a little bit of the old time allure. You see it even in designs and in modeled homes. We're going back to a little bit of a warmer time. And I think with that, there'll be a moment for the co-ops again.
Yeah, that co-op market was the narrative like a year or two ago. It was down and out for a while, for years. And now that the inventory has slowly got from tight to like, oh my God, it's real tight kind of thing. They made a comeback, and those values, it's like the word's out almost.
The word is out. Yeah.
The word is out on the pre-war co-ops. This was fun.
This was great.
Was fun.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you for being here, Maya Kadouri. Thank you to John Walkup. I am Noah Rosenblatt. Say hello to her at Elliman. Connect with her. Excellent resource to have. This has been Talking Manhattan, and we will catch you guys next time. Cheers, everybody.